Hello guys, welcome to part 4 of the, this is the Airfix 1/32 scale Montys Humber model kit. And this is a beginner's guide and also just a watch along for anybody who wants to see how this thing goes together. I've asked a couple of times now in the comments if you think I'm going too fast, too slow, if it's boring, whatever. And no one's really said too much at all, to be honest, about the speed of the thing. So I'll just carry on until somebody complains or whatever. So if you remember, we were doing stage 2 and we got as far as fitting the brakes. And I've still got those on the sprue here. You'll see I've taken the wheels off the sprue. I was sat here merrily talking away as I am now and cutting the parts off the sprue and realised not only did I not only have my camera switched on, I didn't even have the camera here. So I think I'm absolutely finally lost it. I think I've totally old man syndrome, lost it. So this time the camera's there and this time the camera is switched on. So yeah, luckily you get to see what we're doing. So something I've noticed, I've taken all these parts off, they're all the same. Although they're numbered differently, they're all the same. So there's no need to keep them in special pairs or anything. But the first thing I do notice is that they don't go together. And I've got this thing here which is called a digital caliper. They can be bought quite cheaply. And if you're considering sort of taking up the hobby and getting into it, you might want to get one of these if you see one lying around one day, because they really are a great tool to have for things like this. Because you see, I can measure this pin and I can see that it's 1.5 millimeters. Yeah, so I know that that hole needs to be 1.5 millimeters, and you can see it's smaller. So I need to open this hole up to allow these two parts to fit together. And also we've noticed on here we've got the ejector pins again. Now remember in the last video I talked about with the wheels, we're going to take advantage of the fact that they're separate tyres and wheels. So what we can do is actually put these three parts together without gluing the centre, and then we can add the tyres later. So what I'm going to do is put these together first and then going to check that the tyre actually fits this rim really well, because if we go and paint this wheel green and then we go and paint the tyre black, with the paint on the inside of there and the outside of there, they might not go together. So we may have to just get a bit of sandpaper and just clean it up, or perhaps even mask it. In fact, I can try it. I can try it now. What I'll do is I'll take off the sprue nibs on the outside and any flash that's there. I'll not worry about those ejector pin marks for a second, because I know it's going to be coming apart again. So we can see how it goes in, and it's quite a snug fit. And yes, it is a snug fit. So I think what I'm going to do, and we can see, although we've got some flash on these tyres as well. In fact, these tyres have even got lettering on them, which is nice. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to go around these with some emery. I'll show you how. I'll call it emery. It's wet and dry paper. So I'm just going to make this into a cylinder. This is 1200, this one. Put it inside the wheel, let it spring out, and just rub it round inside the wheel. Okay, and I'm going to do that on all of them. Now this one here, as you can see, has got some flash in it. So we'll go in with this. Let it spring out. And then rub away at it. You see now the flash is gone. And now what we should find is that wheel will fit in there a lot easier. There we go. Now we've got a tiny bit of play, which is just enough so that when I get some paint on there, then I know that it'll go together okay. Alright, so I'm not going to have you sit here and watch me do all these tyres, because that is boring. So what I'll do is I'll clean all these parts up and then I'll come back to you in a second. Right, so I've sanded down the outside of these parts just to clean them up. I've dug out a 1.5mm drill, and I've got it here in my trusty old Tamiya drill. I've had this for years. This is a great little birthday present, Christmas present, or something you could get from someone. It's a Tamiya kit. You actually buy it in a kit. If you look on Amazon, you can get them on there. It's a Tamiya electric handy drill, and you build it yourself, and it's a great little thing. It just takes a couple of AA batteries, and yeah, really good little tool. And as you can see, it's not too fast. It's like most of the like Dremels and stuff. They're so fast that the drill tends to melt the plastic rather than cut it. So so I can just draw those out like that with ease, and I know then they'll all fit together. And I'll let you watch me do that. And yes, so have a look on Amazon. Make a great present for someone, or it'd be a good, you know, suggestion if somebody needs to know what to buy you for a birthday or Christmas or whatever, just a gift, or indeed buy one yourself. And the other thing I've noticed, you've got to be a bit careful with these. There's some flash on some of them on the bore that'll stop them. There we go, there's one there. You can see it here. So what you need to do is, with a nice sharp blade, just get in there and cut it around like that. And that removes the flash. And it's best to check them all, because if you have got some flash there, it will stop them going together properly. You see, that's quite simple. Just do that. Just take the edge off. And yeah, all these ones with the smaller hole, which are the inner wheels, these have all got it. So you can see me there just taking it off. And as I said, it's best to do this with a nice sharp blade, a fresh blade. The trouble is, if you use a blunt blade, you're forced to push too hard, and then you might dig in and go tearing up the plastic or slipping and cutting yourself or something. So they're done now. So now I can try these and see if they go together. And you can see that now I've drilled those holes out. Whoops, they go together lovely. So that was actually a 1.55 drill I found in my box of drills. So yeah, get yourself one of these. They're a handy little tool. You know, or you can just buy the like I showed you the other day. You can get these ones here. These are better for the fine work, like when I was doing that exhaust. But if you've got to do a lot of holes, these things are great tool to have. And one more little tip, guys, before I go. Something that someone has asked me about before. How do I get rid of my old blades? What I do, I keep an old bottle and mark it used blades. And then when I get a blade, I just chuck it in there. And then when the bottle is full, I can put it in the disposable, in the recycling, and it'll go, and I know no one's going to cut themselves. And obviously in the recycling they take metal as well, so if it's marked up used blades and they want to pour the blades into the metal, they can. If not, I'm sure it's not going to do any harm. They'll take the glass bottle anyway. These little Tamiya bottles are okay, but the trouble is they're a little bit too short, so it's best to get yourself something a bit taller, like an old pill bottle or something. So yeah, just keep those out of the way, and that'll take probably a year to fill up. So right, I'm going to get on with cleaning these up, and I'll be back in a second. Okay, with these wheel parts all cleaned up now, I can look at fitting these centres, parts 25. What I think of it, I got this out. This is a instruction set from a Airfix model. I can't see a date on here. If you look on ScaleMates, you'll find the date. But it's an Austin Healey Sprite Mark 1. If you remember, I was telling you in my last video about these instructions, how you get these numbered circles now. Years ago, you used to get wording that told you what each part was. And here we go. This is a very old kit. 1960s, I'm guessing, 1970 maybe. And you can see here we've got the diagram is very similar. It's just the parts aren't numbered or anything. And this used to come like this, folded over, and the parts would be in a plastic bag. And you would walk into your local newsagents, and there'd be a rack of them on the wall, you know, and then you could choose your airplanes. And these were Series 1, and yeah, it was amazing. But here we are. You can see they're giving you the health and safety stuff here, and then it's saying, number 1, cement both rear springs onto the wheel stubs of the rear axle, making sure both springs and prop shaft are in line. So they're telling you to assemble the rear springs, the axle, and make sure the prop shaft stays in line. So straight away, you know, you're a 10-year-old kid, you know what all this stuff is called. Cement ends of rear springs and prop shaft into location slots on underside of rear end of chassis. You see, and it doesn't show you, you worked it out. You know, whereas these days you get an exploded diagram and it's showing you exactly where the part goes, and then you've got another stage in the instructions. You had to work this out yourself. You know, like look at this front suspension and this front floor pan. You know, where does that all fit? You know, if we find this, where have we got 11, 14, you know, cement stub axle into square hole axle, making sure that axle is correct way up, axles towards bottom. You know, you had to work it all out, and it was great, and it taught you a lot. I must be honest. When I started when I was 6 years old, and it taught me a lot. So yeah, there you go. So back to this one. So I need to get these wheel centers off. So I've got 25, 31, 37 and 43, and they're on this sprue here. Now straight away we've got a problem. Even these tiny little Tamiya nippers won't get in there to cut them off. I could put the sprue down and cut them off with a knife, but I'm going to damage something, because if I do it that way up, I'm going to damage the radiator, because I'm pushing down here and it's the radiator sits proud. If I do it that way up, I'm going to damage this and also rip this off the sprue. So what I'm going to do is get a pad of paper or a block of wood or something like that, and I can sit this on there like so, and then I can cut my parts off the sprue with a knife. Wow, they are thick, these sprue connection points. There we go, there's one off. So we've got, I've just taken off 37. They'll all be the same, so we don't need to worry about which one's which. You can see I'm going in from either side here to get them off, rather than just trying to go down in one. If you are young, if you're a youngster, perhaps ask one of your parents to do this for you, because it needs quite a lot of force with the knife, and you may well slip and cut yourself. So take extra care with those. So they're off, so that's that done. So now we need to put these inside the wheel, but first of all I'm going to clean them up. Let's get this pad out of the way. I'm going to clean up where I've just cut them off. There we go, so I've cleaned that off now. And I want to check that the large part fits in there okay, and it does, that all turns. And I want to check that the small part fits in there okay. And I think it doesn't fit. No, it doesn't go in there. So let's just try another one. Oh, it goes in there, but it's very tight. Let's just try another one. Yeah, so what I'm going to have to do is, once again with this emery paper, I'm going to have to roll it up a lot smaller this time. Make a cone on one end and just lightly go in and sand it. I keep calling it emery paper, it's wet and dry. Right, for the benefit of our viewers who don't have Tamiya extra thin and have either tube glue or something like this one, I'm going to show you both ways of doing this. So as you can see, we've got our centre piece here, we've got our outer wheel here with a hubcap, inner wheel, and the same over here. So first of all, I'll show you how I do it with the extra thin. Now the most important thing here is make sure all this fits, so make sure that goes in there and turns freely. If you don't want your wheels to turn, don't worry about all this, just glue it all together. But we want to make sure that it goes together and it all fits nicely. And I can see there that it's just gently being pushed apart, so there's something wrong. And I can see that on the back of there's a little bit of flash on the back of that part, so I can just sand that off. There's an ejector pin on the back of there, so I can just sand that off, put this back in here, blow the dust away, and then That goes together a lot better now. Right, so now I've checked that that fits, what I can do with my Tamiya extra thin, bearing in mind that when the tyre halves go out on this, they're going to hold it all together anyway. So what I'm going to do is just a small drop in there and a small drop in there, in that hole and in that hole, and then hold them together. I should be able to hold these together for literally a few seconds, and that should be it. That's that method. And then if you have this contactor adhesive, this one, there's a slightly different way of doing things. Put it together like this. Yeah, make sure it all fits. That's your dry fitting done. Take it apart, and then just put a small drop of glue on the outside of each one of these pins, just on the outside, like so. So all I've done is just a small drop, because remember the tyres are going to hold this together, and then just pinch that up, and that should dry up in no time at all. We're just going to stick a piece of wood in there, just check it's all free. Yeah, everything's all free. Now personally, I don't mind if the wheels turn or not. I'm not sure how tight these are on these axles actually. No, they're very loose, so they will have to be glued. I don't care if the wheels turn or not. You may, but you may be, you know, you may want to have your wheels turning. They're all glued together now, and one of them I need to peg because it's slightly warped. So I want to show you something. This is a little trick I learned off of somebody on YouTube. I can't remember his name, I'm sorry. But clothes pegs, these are wooden ones, they're not very strong. But you can make a far better clothes peg like this. That's far stronger and better at getting into tight places. And all you do is you take the clothes peg apart, take the spring off, yeah, turn the clothes peg around like so, and then fit the spring on. So the spring here is in the groove there that the back of the spring usually goes in, and that is in there. Okay, so that's like that. Put that in like that, and then this one will slide on like so, and then you get a much better clamp, and it's much tighter and it's better at getting into small places. High quality clothes pegs are obviously better than the cheap ones. This is the one that needs fixing. In fact, I'm going to have to make this a spare because I'm having issues. I don't know if that, I think the actual pivot, you know, the piece that went in the middle, I think it's actually running like this. So it's okay 1 minute and then it tightens up. So I'm going to just peg that like that there. And you may have noticed I've actually got 5 wheels here. And yeah, reason being, one of them is the spare. So rather than go through all the trouble of painting your wheels and tyres, the 4 of them, and then later having to do it all again, it's better to just do it now. Just just do all 5. In fact, I'm not even sure if that's going to be seen, because that's going to go in the boot, that's going to go in the back, and then you've got a boot lid going over it, so I don't think it's even going to be seen. So there's really no point in putting it in there. No. So there we go. Let's leave it there for now, and I'll be back in a minute. The time has come to fit the wheels to the tyres. Just dry fitting them initially because we've got to paint everything yet. And what you need to do is make sure that the wheels fit in there easily before you start painting them or anything. Now I've already cleaned out the centre bores, and if you notice now that's kind of clipping in there. So what I need to do is just go around the outside with a fairly coarse sanding stick. Doesn't really matter about how good a job you do with this because it's never going to be seen, and it really, you know, I talked about underneath. I mean, you can pick the model up and look at it. This is actually going to be inside the tyre, so you know, I wouldn't make too much fuss about how it looks. But what you want is it just fall in, not clip in, and that's still clipping in. Let's run another one. Yeah, so we need to remove some more. You see we got a lump on there. This is a very old kit. The moulds are very old. There's probably chips on them and wear and stuff. So, you know, we need to be extra careful. Yeah, that's still quite tight going in there. And I think that's actually the bore. Yeah, that is that bore that's tight. So I'm going to get in there with my sandpaper. Just clean out the bore. Yeah, this is too big on the OD. Just sand it some more. And this is what I've been saying all along. Don't, you know, if you just start forcing stuff, making stuff go together it doesn't want to go, you'll only get problems down the line. Like if I don't do this now, once it's painted, it'll be more difficult to start cleaning it up and stuff. And it's better to do it before it's painted. There we go, that's fine now. It's better to do it before it's painted, because after it's painted, or even just holding this wheel and sanding it and stuff, you know, it's going to mark the paint. What you really want to be doing is you want to be able to put it together when it's painted. Just put it together and leave it, not have to do anything more to it. Obviously, we're going to have to deal with the outside of the tyre on the seam, but we don't want to have to be messing with the wheel when it's all painted. That's got all that cleaned up, and now that should drop in there. Yeah, still just notice this one's got some flash on it. If you look at this wheel here, it's got some flash in the bore, so that needs to be cut out. The others all look good. So like I say, just try them all, make sure they all fit together. Simple as that. So anything you struggle to put together. Yes, we need some more out of that wheel, I think. Or out of that tyre, should I say. There we go. So they're ready for paint now. So what I'm going to do is I need to let this one dry and then sand it down and everything to fit the tyres. And then I'm going to prime everything with a grey primer. And then I'll paint the wheels green. So I think what I'll do is I'll get it all primed, let that go dry. And then once that's dried, then I'll come back with part 5. And I'll show you how I deal with painting it, what colours I use, what colours I use for the tyres. Painting the tyres, I'm going to leave them on the sprue because we're going to have a seam around here to clean up anyway. So I may as well do them on the sprue because I've got to clean up that area anyway. So it gives me something to hold them with. I can spray them lovely. Obviously you don't have to spray, you might choose to brush paint. I don't. I use an airbrush. If you want to see a tutorial on brush painting, there's loads on YouTube and they're all really good. And if you want to get into airbrushing, I know that Paul Bretland from ISM has done some decent videos. He owns a company called Ultimate Modelling Products, and they do an airbrush. I can't think what it's called now, but they do an airbrush, and apparently for a budget airbrush it's very, very good. Right then, I've gone ahead and painted the floor, so we can see here we've got the floor painted now in the olive green. I've used an airbrush to spray this, and while I think of it, the airbrush that they sell at Ultimate Modelling Products, ump.co.uk, is called the Airfix. It gets some really good reviews, and apparently they keep the spares and everything. So I've never used one myself. I have no need for one because I've got a couple of the Iwatas. But yeah, if you're in the market for a cheaper end airbrush, apparently the Airfix is brilliant. Be very wary of some of the stuff you see on eBay. I've seen them for as low as like £10, and if you think to yourself, you think of the parts that are inside an airbrush, making it for £10, well, it's got to be distributed as well. So I don't think so. So anyway, yeah, get yourself an Airfix. They're absolutely brilliant. If not, get one of those cheaper ones like I've shown you, and just hope for the best, really. There's a few videos on YouTube about using cheap airbrushes. Some of them are absolutely brilliant. I mean, that one I showed you earlier with the black end on it, this one I used that for years. If any of you saw my Phantom build on large scale planes and on the Flory models website, this is what I used. I didn't have another airbrush at the time, so that is what I used 100% for that. So they just don't seem to last very long. This is the paint I've used, SCC 15 Olive Drab. If you're into your correct colours and stuff, these are called AK Real Colour, and they're apparently colour matched and everything. I don't tend to worry about that because they all say they're accurately matched and they're all different. So there's so many different shades of German grey, it's untrue. But basically what these guys do is they give you, like this one says SCC 15 Olive Drab. Now that was what the British used. Now you also get the US Olive Drab, which was this one. So you need to be a little bit careful of what you're using, because they are different colours. If you're that worried about it, if you're going to weather it and stuff, it doesn't matter. I mean, here's a typical example. This ambulance I've painted in a lovely light grey for the World War I colour scheme, and then absolutely covered it in dust. So really it wouldn't have mattered if I'd used the wrong grey on that or blue or whatever. So yeah, you get all these different colours from these AK Real colours are really nice. I've never used them on a brush. On brush painting, I would thoroughly recommend Revell. Revell paints are really good. If you follow a guy on YouTube called Hamilcar Barkas, he's got lots of videos up, very good modeler, and he uses nothing but Revell paints as far as I know. So anyway, that's all painted now in the SCC 15 Olive Drab. I've also done the wheels. This is just a Tamiya turntable thing I've got here, which is handy for keeping your parts in. And I've shoved these wheels on sticks, as you can see, so I could paint them on the back and the front. And I've also painted the tyres in Tamiya XF85, which is a rubber black. You should never really paint tyres black because they're not black. If you look at them, tyres aren't black. They're a very dark grey. So the beauty of this kit, as I said earlier, we got the rims separate from the tyres. So instead of having to mask up and paint them, we can paint them separately like this and just put them together. And this is why I made so much fuss at the beginning of checking all the fit and everything, because you don't want to be having to sand stuff now once it's all painted. And you can see there now, you get a really nice demarcation. And then what you do is you assemble, well, I'll show you, I'll assemble these, and then once they're together, then we'll sand the joint, fill the joint, whatever we need to do to get rid of the joint between the two. And then what I'll do is just put a blob of blue tack over the front and back of the wheel and paint it. So you can do this if you're brush painting or if you're airbrushing, do it this way, or you can assemble it all first and then paint it all. So we'll call it a day there. This is the last day of 2018, so I wish you all a happy new year. Thanks for watching. Hope you've enjoyed what you've seen so far. And again, please feel free to comment in the comments down below and tell me what you think. If you think I'm going too fast, if I'm going too slow, something I'm not showing you, so I'm taking too long over, whatever, just let me know. I intend to see this build through to the end and keep you guys posted all the way. So happy new year to you. Please like, subscribe, share, tell your friends, and see you next year. Bye bye.